Welcome to episode 24 of Just Some Points. I'm sitting in the Adirondacks and it's starting to get cold. But nevertheless, I'm looking forward to hearing what Melissa and Maggie have to bring us this week on what's new. Who wants to get started? Melissa, want to get going?
Sure. So this week, I want to talk about a new survey about YouTube. A survey was conducted by Pew Research, and they found that a quarter of U.S. adults get their news by watching YouTube videos, about 26%. Of those who get their news from YouTube, only 1 in 5 of YouTube consumers get their news from the YouTube channels affiliated with established news organizations. And another statistic that they found was of all of the news channels in YouTube, 42% of the channels are independent and 49% are established news organizations. So it's pretty split in terms of how much the established news organizations really own the content being pushed out on YouTube. And even more so, it just keeps getting more granular from there on how many people are actually finding those videos and relying on those videos over the independent channels.
I'm mind-boggling. I personally, I use YouTube 0% for news. Mm-hmm. And I do use YouTube a lot, but not for news. So I'm mind-boggled by that. Not that it's really surprising, but it's kind of scary at the same time. Mm-hmm. Did you talk about the age breakdown? Is it more young people? Did they talk about that?
No, that wasn't a part of the research, but I am curious, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of follow-up surveys that will really break down the age. I would imagine that, YouTube as a whole has a much younger demographic.
Yeah, I would assume it's
generations, so I would assume that it's probably people in their, teens, 20s, even some 30s as well.
Wow. Well, that's very interesting. And let me actually go next because it kind of fits to my topic this week. I'm switching gears today a little bit and I'm not reporting on something new that happened. I want to talk about a new documentary on Netflix. And the documentary is The Social Dilemma. Mm-hmm. And it debuted on Netflix on September 9th. And, as everybody knows, our business is, to a large degree in digital marketing, and we work with all the big platforms. But it was really sobering to watch this documentary. So despite the fact that we're working with all those digital companies, with Google and Facebook and you name them, we seeing being able to look behind the scenes on a lot of those companies was at least at a minimum shocking. We've been very critical consistently since we started Just Some Points on reporting not just about news of those platforms, but also have a critical tone and alternative views on things. But I actually want to touch on a few things. One of the main reasons why I thought this documentary was so interesting and powerful and also believable was the main documentary is basically by current or ex-former senior executives for all of those big platforms telling the story. So it's not just somebody like me talking about them. It's the people who have done it or doing it talking about it. Mm-hmm. And the consistency across all of those executives was, we have a problem. And so the documentary, there's a lot of takeaways of this documentary. But some of the takeaways I walked away from with was the extent of their intrusiveness and planned conscious intrusion into our minds and thoughts is really scary. Their intent very often, if not always, is to make us do things and in a way that we don't understand that they made us do it. We think we are masters of our own minds, but very often it's we steered and directed and planned by them. And that is very, it's a very scary thought, because, you can go as far as saying that this is evil, like somebody's controlling you. So then the use of the algorithm to manipulate us is much more advanced than I thought. I knew it's advanced, those algorithms are advanced, but it goes beyond of what I thought is being done. And the one big surprise I had was that the core of the algorithms is really not known to a lot of people in these companies. I think one of the Facebook executives, senior executive, says that Facebook, the core algorithm, is known by about 5 or 6 people. That to me was really, really a surprise. Also, there's, I would say that they all agreed, and everybody said that there is no corporate conscience and ethics in these corporations. If something can be done, it will be done. Now, individually, people who make those decisions, they're not necessarily sinister or evil, in their intentions, but the overall outcome of them having no ethics and controls is certainly, on the way of being evil. I know this sounds very, over dramatic, but really, that's what I walked away with. And the reason, one of the things why I think actually this fits very well to what you just talked about, Melissa, is they feed us what they think we want to hear, or what they think they want us, they think what we should hear. And as a result, we get fed more and more streamlined what they want us, or how they peg us, or how they tag us. They have this vision of me, and they keep feeding that me. And as a result of that, we don't get any diversity. And I'm personally convinced that that's part reason why worldwide we have this division, why more and more discourse is in society, because everybody just gets fed what they need to hear in order to support their thoughts, and there's no more diverse information flow. And I noticed this myself, and I talked about that in the past with Google search engine, that I have harder time getting a more diverse search result. So I wanted to make this topic my topic today, because as a marketing agency, being in this, we have to start thinking about, being knee deep in this. What's our ethics in all of this? And how does it influence it? And how does it influence how business are being conducted? I personally think that government has to jump a few light years ahead where they are today, and split some of those companies up and put hard controls in. And at the same time, those companies and partners like us of those companies have to, and the consumers should demand more and more change. The employees of those companies should demand more change and put more self-controlling processes in place too. But, overall, I thought this was a really sobering documentary. Maggie and Melissa, I'm a last year baby boomer. You're a younger generation. And Maggie, I think you watched the documentary too.
Yeah,
I did. How do you guys feel about that?
It's, after watching it, you definitely realize a lot of stuff you had no clue could have been done. Like, it was down to a point where when you're scrolling on Instagram, they like know how long you look at something. So like, oh, we want to show them content because they stopped and looked at this content more than another. It was just wild. And it really shows how much of an effect it has on people's mental health now because of this social media world now. It's just like, when I was in college, social media was just getting big, so it wasn't used as often. And then I watch my little sister now and how involved she is in social media and the toll that it can take on somebody, because people think they have to live up to this certain expectation because social media plays this huge role now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The former president of Pinterest, and I think he was, before Pinterest, he was a senior executive on Facebook or Google, one of the two. He was saying, because of his knowledge from behind the scenes, his kids do not get any screen time on any of those social platforms. And his biggest concern for the midterm future is social discourse because of those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's a scary thought expressed from somebody like the former president of Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, what's most eye-opening is realizing how biased everything is based off of the persona that they tag you as. So, you know, you always hear that when you're looking up prices for something, the prices can vary based off of where you're located and, you know, who they think you are as a person. So there's a whole lot of bias in terms of the news you're consuming, the shopping that you're doing. So to me, I kind of opened me up to think, oh, this isn't actually everything. This isn't the whole picture.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to see that because you're just not used to seeing it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to get the information you might want to get. You know, one of the a good example of what is very fitting to current, you know, today is you might have clicked on a conspiracy rumor or a video, and because of that, they tag you of being interested in conspiracy theories, and they keep feeding you conspiracy theories. All of a sudden, you think, oh my God, conspiracy is everywhere, and you start really getting into it, and they influence, you know, how you think and how you look at the world just because of it. And your reality is the reality they feed you because it makes all the sense in the world because you see it all the time. Versus somebody like I don't see none of it. And I said, what are they talking about? And I think that is really something we as society, but also as a marketing agency and our clients, we have to start thinking about much more critically and think about how we want to deal with that. I personally, I'm seriously debating. I think I'm pulling the plug on Facebook with my personal account.
This just
okay.
I guess this is a good chance to let everyone also know that with Apple's new iOS 14, you can update your default browser to DuckDuckGo, and you can eliminate, you know, the chances of being tracked by Google, and you can help spread privacy that way.
Very good point. DuckDuckGo. We talked about it in the past. I don't know which episode it was. I completely agree with you, Melissa. DuckDuckGo. Maggie, what do you have?
So mine actually kind of falls into this as well, because I'm talking about the consumer trends within advertising. A study was done by DoubleVerify, and they found that brands can build on the open-mindedness with relevant ads that appear on trusted sites. So some of the stats that they found from the study kind of fall into what we were talking about before. So one of them was, on average, consumers currently are spending 6 hours and 59 minutes a day engaging with content, compared to the 3 hours and 17 minutes prior to the pandemic. And social media has shown the biggest benefits of this. So that's a big jump. And on your iPhone, I don't know about other brands just because I have an iPhone, but it has a screen time section that tells you how long you have been on your phone all day, how many times you picked up your phone, how many times you just, how many times you opened it, how many hours you've been on it. It's very granular and detailed. So another stat they found was about 48% of consumers increased their time spent on social platforms, mainly YouTube. And YouTube saw a 43% jump in consumer time spent, and then TikTok also saw a large jump, again because this pandemic is the reason why there's been so many jumps. Another one was 69% of consumers are more likely to view an ad if it is relevant to the context, like a COVID related ad right now rather than just general messaging. 67% consumers said they are more likely to engage with an ad on a website of a publisher they know or trust. And lastly, 55% would be less likely to use a brand if it appeared on low quality website.
Yeah, it's just the ad spend is through the roof. And I just read that I think Facebook is, capturing 60% of the digital ad spend at the moment, which explains probably partially why they didn't care about the boycott of the ad spend a few months ago, because they're just raking it in anyway.
Right.
It's just those are all the new realities, and those statistics are just mind-boggling, Maggie. That's just very interesting. Okay, I think it was all interesting. A little scary. I do recommend everybody to watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Not wanting to be necessarily somebody promoting Netflix, but that's where you get it. Hope you found it interesting. See you next week.